Hello everyone and welcome to my first second, or maybe it's a first with half a second, or it's a repeat of something I've done before. Welcome to the first video episode of Notes on Photography. This is a series I've been doing on my site for quite some time with still photographs, talking about an individual image, breaking it down, why I like it, and then showing what I like about it, what I don't like about it, etc. Just remember, I'm one person, this is one photograph, it's just my opinion. You may love the image, you may not like the image, it's totally fine. The image that we're looking at today, I made in a place called Ribera in Sicily. And this was during a long-term project where I went to Sicily, made 4 trips over about a 5 or 6 year period. I don't remember exactly, but it was a long-term project. One of the most entertaining projects I've ever done. And this image was made in Ribera. Ribera is a town that has what they call the jumpers. And during Easter processions, the men of the town get together, they get in lines, they link their arms together, and they run through the streets, running and jumping in unison over and over and over again, namely up the main boulevard that runs through the middle of town. I'm not entirely sure why specifically that's done in Ribera. I believe it's the only town in Sicily that has this custom, and that's one of the reasons why I went there, is that each town had a unique custom during Easter that I found very interesting and appealing. I got run over right after making this image, which I'm not faulting them for. It was my fault for being in the middle of the street. As you can see, the man in the foreground came past me, and then the whole wall of men and I sort of met in the middle, and it all ended well, but it was quite a moment there where I thought for a second I might be losing my gear. I think I made this with a M6 and a 35mm lens. It probably would have been better with a 50mm lens, but let's break it down and get into it, and I'll show you what I mean. All right, so let's break down this image. What about this image do I like, and what about this image could be better, some of which is in my control and some is not. The first thing I love about this image is that it is an actual moment. This is what Cartier-Bresson referred to as the decisive moment. And you see that moment here in the look of his expression. You see that in the gesture of this guy's hands. He is literally running towards me in the street, just like this, right at me. You also have all of this peak action here in the middle. These are people in the middle of running right at me. You have all the people on the balconies that are lining all the sides of the street. This looks like it could be 1950 with the exception of right here where you have a mobile phone, you've got a small disposable camera right here. But I love the fact that this is a moment. This is a legitimate moment that I caught. There will never ever happen again. That is something I have a great appreciation for. It's very difficult to do. The second thing I like is I've got a foreground right here with this gentleman, and I've got a nice secondary midground here with the peak action group here in the center, and I've got a little bit of a background here with this little banner and the street. And what that's doing is you've got these strong diagonal lines and elements that are forcing your view to go here right on these guys. And this is also with the crowd here on the side, sort of everything aiming at the center. I think it's a pretty nice use of a wide angle lens. I think I shot this with a 35. It would have been better with a 50 if I had basically just cropped, potentially better in something like this with a 50. I would have, well, let me go back a little bit. I would have definitely included his hand in there. But, this is a solid frame too, just something to think about. I think a lot of times one of the things that we can do to get better is to always move forward into a photograph as opposed to backwards, or as opposed to racking your zoom back and forth, and to move closer. But this was a rapidly changing scenario. I mentioned before I got run over right after I took this, but again, my fault, not theirs. What I don't like about this, there's not a whole lot I don't like about it. The light is okay, it's not great. There's no detail here. Right in here. If I would have gotten lucky, I would have gotten cloud cover. I would have gotten a later time of day or an earlier time of day. This is in the middle of the day, basically. You can see that by the highlights on his head and how highlights on top of everything. The sun is pretty much coming down straight from above, which is not ideal, but I can't control that. I can't control the skies. It would have been nice again. There's more detail here in the shadows if I really want to pull that out, but I've always been a contrasty, dark, grainy printing photographer, so, I'm okay with that. I don't necessarily need to see shadow detail here because I want you here. That's my primary directive, is to get you to go from right here to right here. I think it works. That's why I like this photograph. It's in the final edit. I think there are 50 photographs in the final edit, and this is one of them, so I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for tuning into that. This is a series that I love doing, and I have a sinking suspicion I will be doing a lot of these into the future. I might actually break out in the future and start asking you if you have images you want me to break down, because I would much rather break down someone else's images than my own. But I went to photography school. This was a big part of what we did in school, was look at individual images and analyze whether they worked or they didn't work and what we could have done better. So again, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.